for folks who are senior in their careers, it's important for them to stay relevant in the sector. So they need to stay up to date with the trends, up to date with the research, up to date with how international development is evolving. If you've been in international development for 30 years in agriculture and been in one specific niche, and that's no longer a hot trend, you need to figure out how do you become relevant. So you got to stay up with, stay in the discourse, right? You got to remarket yourself. You got to think of ways to maintain relevance. So how do you do that? All right. So I think what's important is to think about how your technical area translates into the sector in which you're looking at an opportunity. More and more, we're seeing integrated types of approaches to development, right? Health systems governance is an example, right? So you're combining governance expertise and health expertise. So it's a perfect example of where people who are hardcore governance can reinvent themselves and be at the front of a trend and make some significant impact. When we talked about the issue of ageism, some folks were saying, well, but isn't it the opposite too, right? The younger professionals not being able to get the opportunity to get out to the field. So I think an interesting connection there is that our more senior staff have the expertise to be able to mentor, to be able to be senior advisors, to be able to, kind of groom the next generation, in terms of international development. And I think that it's an area that's really missing in the larger community, because it's so, I wouldn't say individual specific, but we don't see a lot of that happening. And I think that's a great opportunity, particularly in the arena of capacity development and local capacity development. We need to build our own capacity to be able to build capacity, and you can get that through kind of our senior staff who have that expertise. I guess the third and final thing would be that with more experience, you get a higher price tag, right? It's natural. You're going to evolve. Your price tag's going to also mature as well, and sometimes that could push people out of competition. I think individuals are sensitive about that. So I think we have to be flexible. Senior professionals need to be flexible about pay, particularly as it relates to base, and perhaps you can get to a total compensation position through other mechanisms like variable pay, and not be so tied to a certain base level that compounds over time and may be restrictive. So you're seeing less full-time, fully loaded expats as senior advisors, multiple on a project. But this gets to my point about reinventing yourself. So, and maybe the approach is not so much that full-time expat position in Kenya. Maybe it's a home office position where you have sole time across a portfolio of projects and you do short-term technical assistance versus versus an expat position, because maybe the project can't afford a full-time advisor, but they can afford some short-term technical assistance.